Coming to you from Chicago, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government. GovLove is produced by ELGL, the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. We engage the brightest minds in local government. I'm Dan Bolin, a local government attorney and partner at the Ansel Glink Law Firm in Chicago. Today, I'm joined by Megan Caron, Elizabeth McDonald, and Ryan Webb. Megan is a Strategic Initiatives Analyst at the City of Nashua, New Hampshire. Elizabeth McDonald is a Senior Civil Engineer at the City of Savannah, Georgia. And Ryan is the Engineering and Community Development Director for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Oregon. Megan, Elizabeth, Ryan, welcome to GovLove.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you, gang. Megan, Elizabeth, and Ryan are all Local Government 2030 delegates. Or is it Local Government 2030 delegates? I don't know. Maybe they'll tell me later. But they are a coalition of professionals working to help local governments tackle their biggest challenges. We'll ask them about their experience at their first convening in Omaha, the initiatives they are working on today, and look ahead at their next convening in Phoenix. But first, let's get started with our signature lightning round. Dear guests, please tell us about your career path, starting with the day you were born through the day before you first heard about Local Government 2030 or Local Government 2030. Let's hear it. Megan, let's start with you.
Okay, great. So my name is Megan Caron. I am the Strategic Initiatives Analyst for the City of Nashua, New Hampshire. And I'll start maybe post-grad. I won't go through my high school jobs, but so I actually started in higher ed, moved to nonprofit work. And while I was working at a nonprofit, I had the opportunity to get my MPA at Suffolk University. And I started with a concentration in nonprofit management. And as I was going through my MPA, I started to take some obviously more policy-oriented courses, and I actually accepted a position with the City of Nashua as the director of the Arlington Street Community Center, which in my mind kind of melded my two passions, which is policy and government and community-based work. But what really kind of helped my transition over to City Hall was I took a class called Financing State and Local Government. And for me, it was really a challenge because I never thought I would like it, but it was the last class I took and I really enjoyed it. So I ended up moving over to City Hall as the Strategic Initiatives Analyst. And that's where I am today.
Well, that's a very exciting, interesting career path. Elizabeth, how about you?
Absolutely. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, and went to school at the University of Michigan. And while I was there, I originally was going to study geology. I had this passion for the earth and rocks, and it was all prompted by an awesome opportunity to study abroad. And then when I got to school and started taking my courses, I loved them, but I was concerned about employment after graduation, as we all are. So I did a little bit of a career, or I guess educational focus shift to the College of Engineering, which had very similar prerequisites, but I felt was a more immediately employable after graduation. I didn't need to necessarily worry about a graduate degree right away. So I got my degree in environmental engineering, trying to stick on that same path. And one of the courses we took was basically how to design drinking water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. And so thinking ahead to that summer, I was like, I need a job for the summer. I reached out to the City of Ann Arbor, which is where the University of Michigan is. I reached out to their drinking water treatment plant and I said, hey, do you want an intern for the summer? And they were like, we haven't actually thought about it, but that would be really cool partnership. And so they hired me. And that was my first experience working for a local government entity. After graduation, I went to the private sector for about a year and a half, and then relocated to the Florida Panhandle with my husband, where I got hired by the city of Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Worked there for almost 3 years. Realized I really enjoyed the public sector much more than the private sector. And we move around quite often, my family, because my husband's in the Army. So after the city of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, we were up in Petersburg, Virginia, where I worked for the city of Petersburg as their city engineer. And now we are located in Savannah, Georgia, where I work for the city of Savannah, Georgia, as a senior civil engineer located out of the city's drinking water treatment plant.
Oh, very exciting. Follow-up question. What is your favorite rock?
My favorite rock? Oh my gosh, you're really taking me back to my college days. Probably obsidian. I like how shiny it is.
Ooh, obsidian. That's the like dark the black rock, like
Yes.
shiny one.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. That reminds me of the dark saber from the Mandalorian show that I just finished watching the most recent season. Kind of an interesting obsidian like blade on the rock there. A fine rock, fine choice, Ryan. I don't know how you're going to follow this, but remember the question is. Starting with the day you were born through the day you first heard of Local Government 2030, what is your career path? Just to maybe set the scene. Your parents are at the hospital. The doctor walks in and says, "Congratulations, it's a baby engineering and community development director." What happens next?
Well, I appreciate to start from day one, especially we're talking a signature lightning round. But talk about my whole life in a signature lightning round. But I would say that I don't have many memories in the first 5 or 6 years of my life. But what
That's
I will
fair.
say, as an engineer, I was a typical engineering kid, right? I played with Legos. I like remote control cars. As I progressed into a teenager, I still loved Legos. I started working on cars and motorcycles, and that was definitely a passion. So I was like, I'm doing automotive engineering. That's what I want to do when I go to college. I visited some colleges in their open days. And one of the colleges that I visited, which is the one I ended up going to, which was the University of Nottingham in England. They had this whole setup where we got to build bridges out of straws. And I thought that was so cool. And I made a very rash decision at that point that I was going to then focus on structural engineering. So I started doing structural engineering, realized quickly that actually designing bridges isn't as fun and easy as building them out of straws. It's a lot different. So I kind of shift my focus into civil engineering, and that's ultimately where I got my bachelor's and master's in. I was fortunate to be able to do kind of a study abroad program for my university in England. I went to Oregon State University in the States for my junior year, my third year of college. And at the end of that, not only did I meet my wife there in my kind of year abroad, but I also had the opportunity to get my first taste of local government, as I did an internship at the end of that year abroad with the City of Portland in Oregon. That not only I think helped my wife and I cement our relationship, but also kind of really gave me that really kind of focus on local government and what I wanted to do. I went back home and kind of finished off my degree. I actually spent 2 years working in England. My wife came in and lived with me for a little bit. And I had a pretty cool job right out the gate. Again, it was a government job, but it was focused on the canals and the rivers in England. So we were working on as an engineer, kind of inspecting and repairing a lot of the old structures. So the bridges, the locks and those systems. And some of them were like, I don't know, late 1700s, early 1800 bridges. Some real historic pieces there. But the cool piece was I actually got to work for on the Olympic Stadium in 2012, London Olympics. So I did that for a little bit. And then after that, I moved to the States, and I was successful. My wife and I got married, we moved to the States. I was successful in getting a job with the city of Portland, where I did my internship. I worked there for a decade as an engineer, designing and building many roads, bridges throughout that time. And then 2.5 years ago, I made a shift and took a job working for the Confederated tribes at Ronde as their engineering and community development director. So it's still local government work, but it's tribal government really is what it is, but it's definitely got a lot of kind of deep connections with local government, but there are definitely some differences to that, which kind of make it interesting and challenging.
Well, in any event, I can easily see how your work with straws informs your work today.
Yeah.
What stadiums did you work on building for the Olympics?
It was the main Olympic stadium, the one there that's kind of right on the river. But yeah, the main Olympic stadium.
Oh, very, very cool. Did they let you compete in an event by virtue of your work on the stadium? You get to pick one?
That would be pretty amazing to try, and I feel like at least the javelin. I feel like I could give the javelin a good try. But unfortunately, by the time they actually had the Olympics, I was living over here in the US, and I didn't go back for them.
I don't know if you were really good with the javelin, you could still get it across the Atlantic.
That's true. That's very true.
Well, anyways, it's the end of our lightning round. Everyone has a perfect score. Congratulations. But we're here to talk today about local government 2030. Gang, what is local government 2030 for our audience that might not know? Megan, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. So local government 2030 is basically a cohort of 50 delegates under the age of 40 who are really trying to shape the future of local government by breaking down, silos that currently exist and paving the road to change. So that's a very broad overview.
Oh, hey, that's good. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to you're also a delegate too. Tell us about what you think about what local government 2030 is, and maybe a bit about how you became to be a delegate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw an advertisement for it, I think in a Georgia water professionals email, and thought, I love local government. This is the 4th municipality I've worked for. I felt like reading the description of, people who are passionate about local government, people who want to pave change in the field for the next generation of local government employees. It screamed like this is an opportunity for you. So when I saw it, I applied and got accepted, and it's been a really incredible opportunity working with 49 other people who feel the same way, feel passionate about the communities in which they live and work, and just want to do the best they can for those communities.
Oh, very good. Brian, what does local government 2030 mean to you?
What does it mean to definitely breaking down those silos, like Megan said, and paving the way for change. I mean, this is part of a kind of a plan by the National Academy of Public Administration to kind of overcome the grand challenges that they've identified through some research and engagement process that they did, 4 or 5 years ago now. So they identified these 12 challenges. There were 4 kind of key focused areas from that challenges. And then really kind of for us, it's kind of understanding those challenges and what can we do within our day-to-day job to overcome those. So for future generations within local government, it is a better place than it is today. And today it is still a fantastic place to work. And, I really would, make sure that everybody realized that local government is a choice employer and really should be people's place to come work. But how can we make it even better for the next generation that's kind of coming on board?
You mentioned the National Academy of Public Administration. Is that they organize this this group?
I think they set the wheels in motion for this group, right? So they, like I said, they identified what the grand challenges were within local government. And then I think people took that and kind of ran with it. So there was a committee or a convening before us where they really kind of an ad hoc type call to all government and professionals to try and address these challenges that we're facing. So they really kind of started convening, I think, back in 2020 after these challenges were put out by the National Academy of Public Administration. And I think from their kind of ad hoc kind of meetings, it was very apparent to them that like no one group, no one person can do this. It very much has to be a meeting of the minds and really kind of getting people together to kind of talk about it, to talk about trends, talk about issues, talk about challenges, and what next steps are to try and get to 2030 where we're in a better state than we are today.
And so the next step was to put out kind of like these ads that Elizabeth saw and find delegates. Does that happen to you, Megan?
Yes, and actually I saw the ad through ELGL. I just happened to be reading one of the, I think it was a blog post, and I saw right on the side, local government 2030, and I clicked on it. I'm so glad I did because it was like very close to the deadline, and I was on vacation trying to like get my application in. And it's because when I read the description, I was like, this is perfect for me because I love local government and I love to work with, like-minded people who are looking to do things differently. And this was the perfect opportunity to even sit down and discuss that. I feel like most of us there are not enough hours in the day to even, we could have these conversations, but at the end of the day, we have to get back to our functions just to keep local government going. So this was a great opportunity to take a moment and think big picture of how we can really make change.
Yeah, well said. And your application was like a recorded tape, a couple songs. A couple.
Yeah, I did some spoken word.
Yeah.
So, that could be why I was chosen. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Neat. Ryan, what did you sing for your application?
I was gonna say, we each had to do a masked singer audition, right? And that's what we had to do. So you'll see us on the episode later, I guess, with masked singer for that.
Oh yeah, maybe. Well, yeah. So like, how did y'all hear you were selected, and then what happened next? Megan?
Wally emailed us and said that we were selected and that we would be, we were sorted into different discipline groups. So for me, I work for the mayor, Jim Donchis, and I was in the general government administration group. And then we had a couple of like big meetings where we went through some additional not trainings, but really some conversations about the background of where this initiative came from. And then we're given an assignment, our first big assignment within our discipline groups, which was a 20-page white paper based on the grand challenges that directly affect our disciplines on a daily basis.
Oh, I know Wally from our days, his time at the City of Evanston, and his involvement with the ILCMA, the Illinois City Manager Organization, helped by me. But who, for our listeners, who is Wally? Wally, we're talking about the same Wally, right? Wally.
Yes, Wally Bobkowitz.
Yes.
There you go.
He-
Who's
so
Wally
currently-
and how's he involved in the group?
Currently, he is the city manager of Issaquah, Washington, previously city manager of Evanston, Illinois.
Yeah.
My understanding of how this came to be, and Ryan, Megan, add in if I'm missing anything here, but Wally sort of had this, as a longtime local government employee, had this vision of what does the future of this industry look like. And when COVID happened, and a lot of people, he liked to describe it, a lot of people were at home making their sourdough bread. This local government 2030 was his sourdough bread. He used that time as an opportunity to come up with this idea of bringing the minds of the next generation together to look at these grand challenges that Napa had put forth and come up with initiatives to address some of those challenges. And so without Wally, I don't think any of this would have ever come to fruition. So I know I spoke in another podcast called the Public Works Podcast, and I referred to him a lot as our leader, because that's really what he is he's sort of led this group to where we are today and what we will be in the future.
Yes, and for the listener, Napa, I think we're referring to the National Academy of Public Administration,
yes,
and not the auto parts store. But Ryan, take me from you get the email from Wally, you're a delegate to this first convening that you had in Oregon in November of 2022.
So I think, like I said, we all got notified. We then started to sit on kind of large group meetings to really understand what it is that's being asked of us, what we can do, and really understanding what they foresee the process being up to the convening and at the convening in Omaha, Nebraska. So we met as large groups, and then we also started to meet fairly frequently within our own discipline. So kind of Megan alluded to, she was in the general administration kind of discipline. Elizabeth and myself were in the public works kind of discipline, since that's kind of our background, our day-to-day jobs. And within those smaller groups, we started to have conversations about, like, what are we challenged? What challenges are we facing? What do we want to see as outcomes from this kind of convening and from local government 2030? So really from that, it was kind of generating a white paper about the challenges that we face in our individual disciplines and kind of collectively as local government, and really where we foresee there's challenges and solutions to those challenges to kind of overcome things by 2030. We also had to put together a presentation, and I don't remember, I always consider it as the Pikachu presentation,
Yes,
which is not the correct name for it. But we had to do a presentation in that format, which is like one slide every 20 seconds. And I can't remember how many slides total, but it's like, what, 2 minutes or 4 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it's 20 slides. So 20 slides, each for 20 seconds.
Okay. So we did that, and so the purpose of those slides is really to put together talking about what your discipline does. So for like Elizabeth and I, it was like, what does public works do for its communities? What we do within local government? And so Elizabeth and I, well, our whole team, but really our whole team put it together, this slide, but we focused on, like, what does public works do for the communities? And it's everything from, like, making sure when you turn your tap on that there is water flowing from it 24/7, 365 days a year. You know, when you get up in the morning and go use the bathroom, that you can flush that. So we gave a kind of a presentation. It was kind of a story of somebody's day from getting up in the morning and heading to Omaha, Nebraska, and all of their interactions within public works, whether it be, like, say, running water, using the bathroom, public transit, transportation, parking, running on trails, things like that. So we put those presentations together, and we kind of delivered that to our fellow delegates in Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, very, very cool. So each of you had presentations to share with your fellow delegates in Omaha. It sounds like. Megan, did you have one?
So each discipline had one.
Oh, I see.
So the discipline, general government administration had one, and there were 7 disciplines. I have to say, Public Works was probably my favorite because it really told a story. I actually went back and told our director of Public Works about this presentation, and she was like, "Do you have it?" And I was like, "Well, I will see. I know everything was recorded, and I think they're still in the process of getting that over and converted or whatever they do." But I was like, if I can get it, I will send it to you because it's so cool. And I think it really tells the story of, I mean, obviously specifically for Public Works, but it was a great example of how local government impacts the community's daily lives.
Oh, very, very nice. Elizabeth, what presentation were you involved with, if you were?
I was also in the Public Works presentation
Oh.
because Ryan and I both have that Public Works background in our day-to-day jobs. So that's what our presentation focused on. Each, as Megan was saying, each discipline gave their own presentation. I wish I had a list of the disciplines in front of me, but there's a community services discipline, which encompassed things like parks, recreation, libraries. There was public safety discipline, which encompassed fire, police, health inspector. There was administration, as Megan said, Public Works, that Ryan and I were both in.
Finance.
Had a presentation. I'm missing 2 here because there were 7.
Planning and economic development was another one in there.
Yes.
And I think the last one was administrative services. Yeah. So, well, it depends on how each unit, but human resources, everything was encompassed in administrative services, those internal systems.
Okay. So you arrive in Omaha, you share these presentations with each other. What was next? What became? What did you learn from these presentations, and what did you do with them next? Ryan, what happened next?
I think once we kind of get a better understanding of what collectively as a group, everything that we do, it was really then kind of discussing hopes and dreams for the future of local government, right? Kind of getting those all, everyone gets a Post-it note, put it on a wall, and really talk about what our hopes and dreams are for the future of local government. Then also discussing current trends, whether that's, social, economic, environmental, political, all of these trends that are kind of happening right now. And then really from, hopes and dreams to trends to then identifying really general challenges within local government that we want to address or we want to overcome. And I think for our challenges, there were kind of everything from, I kind of mentioned them, right? Like workforce is a big piece that's within that. Social is another big piece. Economic obviously always is, environmental as well. So, and then from that, we got split up into groups to then talk about internally in those groups, general challenges based off the trends and the hopes and dreams.
Elizabeth, what did your group talk about at this point?
So
convening?
After we had narrowed, I shouldn't say narrowed down, after we had broadly discussed all of these different challenges the 50 of us face in our day-to-day roles, we then worked in our small groups to narrow down into, I think it was three, I'm going to say initiatives at that point that we thought are that our small group thought was the most important to present forward, most important to push forward, that needed to be focused on, that needed to be prioritized. So we all, after each small group narrowed down, these are our 3 most important, we came back as a big group and had to collectively decide what are the initiatives that we've narrowed down that we all want to focus on over the next year, to actually try and find resolution to these issues. And from those conversations as a big group, we came to 3 initiatives that we are now working on, and have been working on since we were in Omaha, Nebraska, to try and come up with solutions to these problems.
Ooh, what are they? Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. So Megan and I are in the same initiative group called Grow a Resilient Workforce. And our initiative is focusing on how can local governments better recruit, retain, and develop their employees. We have all experienced, we were actually just talking about it in a staff meeting this morning at my job, vacancies, vast vacancies within the public sector. And, I think that's expanded since the COVID-19 pandemic, but was still an issue that existed prior to that. And how can we properly and adequately service our citizens and provide the services that local governments do if we don't have the staff to do it? So we are looking to hopefully minimize the retention issues that local governments are seeing, create better recruiting opportunities, and then also develop employees who do work for local government so that they want to stay. So we are not, we're all working further and further into this process. Megan, I don't know if you want to speak to where we actually are in resolving is not the right word, but
Yeah.
Working on that initiative.
Yeah, it's certainly been a process. And Elizabeth, you make a good point, because we're not necessarily resolving it yet. And when people ask me, okay, well, what is the solution? My answer is, we don't know. That's why we're here. Like, that is why we are here, because it's not working. So right now, this whole process, actually going back to splitting up into the 3 groups, and it was super intense. At one point, like, I had to go in the hallway, because it's just like you're in this room all day trying to figure out like what we want to do and how we're going to try to solve these problems. And you're basically in like a literal like think tank. And if you've worked in local government, trying to solve an issue in 2 days it's not really feasible. I think we're on our way, though. So since then, in Grow, we've been working towards what we're still hashing out is some type of recognition program. So, and it's kind of twofold. So for employers, they'll be able to kind of identify themselves as a choice employer, saying, okay, we're doing X, Y, and Z things, and that's why you would want to work for us. And for employees, if they see that a municipality is a grow city, they're going to say, oh, okay, this municipality is engaged with and able to represent what I'm looking for in a workplace. I do think, though, the biggest part of this is a culture shift, and that's going to take some time, and it's going to take it's definitely a learning curve, but what we're doing now isn't working. And so convincing other administrators that we have to try something different will take a little time. So I think that's where we are right now. The very first step is testing our assumptions and seeing if what we think that employers or employees or potential employees may want from their position, if that really is the case, and then shaping our criteria for the Grow recognition program around those.
Oh, interesting. So that this is like a big initiative that responds to the grand challenges that you talked about in Omaha. You took those home with you, and you're working on them now. How are you working on them now with with each other? Just different calls. You tell me.
Lots of Microsoft Teams and Zoom meetings.
Yeah. And it's definitely 2 steps forward, 1 step back, which I think is okay. And also in the line with what we do as local government practitioners. When we're creating the criteria for this program, I think one thing to keep in mind is making sure that it's equitable for all municipalities. So, the city of, or a small county in Florida, for example, is not going to have the same resources as Dallas, Texas. I mean, I don't know much about Dallas, but I'm assuming they have more resources, whether it's time or budget or people, than a small county. So with Grow, we want to make sure that this criteria is reflective of what each municipality can achieve. And it could be that, hey, we see that this is an issue, and we are going to try to work on it. This is these are the steps that we're taking. And I think those small steps that they're taking, that would still make them a Grow, that would still qualify. They'd still qualify to be a Grow city. It doesn't have to be, no one works on Fridays or this, that, and the other. It can be small steps, because employees do want to work for a municipality that, I think, for me, is trying. They don't have to have the solutions. They don't have to have this big, bold plan, but they have to show that they're in touch with what we want and need as employees.
Oh, very cool.
And what future employees want and need as well.
That's right.
Oh, well said. Good point. So are these like continuing conversations with just your fellow delegates, or are you like reaching out to other communities, or who's all involved in this continuing work?
So far, go ahead, Ryan.
What I would say is so far we are all meeting and working on our kind of in 3 groups, working on 3 different initiatives. We are all trying to, as a group, working on those initiatives, understand where we want to go. But really now we're starting a process of rolling it out to kind of the greater public within local government. So the initiative that I'm part of, which is the Promise Pathways one, we just had kind of an open house last Thursday, to really kind of put it out there about what that initiative is, what we're working on, where we want that initiative to go, what our next steps within it to make it a successful initiative. So we are now starting to have these open houses to talk about each one of those initiatives, really rolling it out to our fellow kind of peers within local government. I know for the next convening, I think there's the definite want to have more elected officials involved in these, to really start getting some bigger buy-in on these initiatives and on the challenges that we face. And I think really, when we talk about these initiatives, and like say, people asking Megan, like, what's the solution to workforce? So this is local government 2030, right? It's not local government 2023, 2024, 2030. So these are big initiatives that really are fundamental changes within local government, and they just take time to be successful. But we think with the path we're on for each one, that they will be successful.
Ryan, why don't you tell me a little bit more about what the Promise Pathways initiative is and the work you guys are doing?
So the Promise Pathways is an initiative that envisions a local government workforce that is resilient, equitable, and inclusive by creating local government as employment opportunities within the public sector for adjusted, impacted individuals. So really trying to recognize that there's individuals in our communities that have been impacted through the justice system, and how we can not let their past define their future, and what we can do within local government to help them have a successful future, and not judge them on the past actions. So that's really Promise Pathway. What Promise Pathways is about. There are some huge kind of fundamental shifts that have to happen, not even just at a local level, really at state and federal levels, to really start changing potential legislation that can then make this successful for individuals within our communities.
Oh, very cool. And your group is having open houses, and our listeners are just excited to hear what this third and final initiative you all settled on. Megan, can you tell us what?
Sure.
That there's been a quiet drum roll happening the entire time we've been talking. And we're ready to hear the final one.
So the last one is called the Art of Public Service, the Communication Continuum. And this was really based on, communication actually internally and externally is really tough to do with residents especially, but there's such a distrust of local government, and it's very politically divisive. I'm sure that we all feel that. I know that we all feel that actually, because this is how this came about. So what the communications continuum is doing is they are kind of creating, or they're reimagining the way that we communicate with our communities. And part of that is centering communications around the needs of local government. Around the needs of their residents. So they're creating a toolkit to kind of rework all of this and make it so that we're more effective moving forward, because right now, again, what we're doing is not working, and it is so divisive, and it comes down to taxpayer dollars, and it's always such a sensitive issue. And what all of us are really trying to show is that we are here and do really great things for the community. I mean, the 50 of us are just local government nerds. When it comes down to it, we believe in the work that we do, whether it's rocks or
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still kind of jealous. I feel like I gave a really boring intro.
Disagree.
And then both Elizabeth and Ryan, came up with they have these great backgrounds. I'm just a jack of all trades, master of none, but they building stadiums and digging up rocks in their in their childhood. So so yeah, so I'm actually, their open house is next week. So where they are in the process, we are to be determined next week. So our for Grow, our open house was last night, and we kind of explained where we are in the process and what we're looking for with potential in potential partnerships. So we're definitely looking for some marketing and branding as to how to within human resources consultants or local government consultants and entities, how we in the future can market this program. And we're also looking for some, we have a good amount of research that's already been accumulated. We would also like to be conducting some focus groups. And if there are any organizations out there that kind of specialize in how to do that effectively, we even brought up maybe hosting focus groups at some of the regional and national conferences that we're all attending in the next year. So those are some of the things that's really our call to action right now on a national level. Did I miss anything, Elizabeth?
Covered it all.
Okay.
Ryan, I guess I gotta give the floor to you to put out plugs for call to action for support of your initiative and the work your group's doing. What kind of resources would be helpful in the work that in the initiative group you're working with?
I think for us, initially we are what we've been doing over the last several months is really understanding potentially where there's challenges within really, whether it's local law enforcement, whether it's state and federal legislation issues, So really getting a better understanding of that. Really understanding is that, you know, we're talking about promised pathways for just and impacted individuals. Are there programs out there in the communities right now that are doing just what we're trying, but we just don't know, or it's not on the scale that we want to see? So really kind of understanding, are there nonprofits? Are there where local governments or counties, cities or counties have programs like this where they're being able to hire justice impacted individuals? So it's been a very much a kind of a information, a data collection type process. And then from that, we kind of brought them to our open house of what we found, and then spoken about where from those issues are we going to take our next steps, and really rolling that out, like Megan said, to the greater audience. And we're doing that as well through conferences within our own disciplines. I just attended a conference for the APWA, so the American Public Works Association, our local Oregon chapter, and gave a presentation on local government 2030. I'm also doing one for the national conference for APWA at PDWX. I'm talking about, again, local government 2030. It is in San Diego, so that also may be a bit of a draw to go to that conference, but we're going to be talking about it there. So really, and then my peers within our group are doing similar things with all the kind of associations that they're part of within their field. They're going out to conferences and kind of really spreading this word. And I think that's really part of it, is spreading the word so more people can kind of help us deliver on these initiatives, right? We're only a very small group of people with some big ideas and big challenges we're facing, and we definitely need more support from our peers to make it successful.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed on social media, is seeing folks talking about the local Gov 2030 initiatives at different conferences and back at their different organizations and groups back at home. So I'm seeing the word getting out. That's how I heard about all of you all in the first place. So thrilled to talk to you today. But the question I was wondering is, I know it's early and you're still like, working on these different initiatives, but is there anything that you've been able to take away from your initial convening or the work you've been doing so far and been able to apply in your own work, your organizations back at home? Megan, maybe I'll start with you.
Just to clarify, you're saying within our three groups, these three initiatives, have we been able to
maybe in or out of your initiatives, just anything that you've been able to learn from this experience and apply to your everyday work?
Well, I'll say that when I bring these ideas back and kind of talk about local government 2030 to whether it's mid-level management or senior management, to my pleasant surprise, they're actually very on board and agree. They also agree. I have not heard anyone say, no, we don't work with in silos. We're not all kind of, in our fiefdoms. They agree that there has to be a change. So that was really validating to know. I think, and again, I'm just speaking from personal experience, being under 40 and working in local government can feel very isolating. And for this whole experience, I felt so seen and heard. I mean, just sitting in a room with 49 other people who are, as passionate as myself about local government, but also see the challenges that I'm seeing. I kind of felt like, okay, it's not just me. I look around in the country and see all these really cool things that other municipalities are doing, and I feel so jealous sometimes. So to know that other people out there exist and they're all on different levels of coolness, I guess, with what they're doing. And I feel like I'm just kind of going on a tangent, but that was really the biggest thing that I kind of brought back was there are some really great people that are in our field, and there are some really great ideas, and how can we do this starting now? So, but even having those conversations, honestly, and hearing that folks, at least within my municipality, agree that these are challenges and that we need to do something about it was such a great first step.
No, that we value tangents here, and we.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, but that's real validating, I'm sure, to hear that your organization is acknowledging and appreciating the work you're doing through this group. Elizabeth, what were you able to take home and maybe apply to your work?
I think I want to just elaborate a little bit on what Megan was saying, the concept of coming back and not being afraid to have those conversations with those in management roles, because I think the assumption from both junior employees as well as the community can be, oh, this hasn't happened because management doesn't want it to happen, versus after I've had some of those difficult conversations, it's more, oh, this hasn't happened because it hasn't really been thought about. It's not as big of a roadblock as one might have thought. So I've had some conversations, personally, an initiative I'm very passionate about getting implemented with the City of Savannah is a maternity leave policy, and having the conversation with my supervisor as well as his supervisor. The first response I got was, wow, I didn't realize we didn't have a maternity leave policy, so it's if it's not something that's hitting you in the face every single day, it's not at the front of your mind, and it might not be an issue you think that you need to overcome. It's not until someone brings it up or a situation arises, and I'm working towards making one happen. So that's just one example, but there's been a number of conversations I've had with different people. I've recently joined a committee. It's called Diversity Champions, that the City of Savannah has, and it's led by our diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, and getting to have those conversations in that room about how can we make human resource policies more equitable, things that, like I said, haven't been looked at because no one's brought it up, not because no one thinks it should change. So.
Yeah, and change is time consuming.
Yes,
and it can be hard, but the actual solutions aren't that hard. I feel like half the battle is just convincing people when they say why, responding with why not, and it's just eventually you see a light bulb go off. It's just like, oh, yeah, I guess we could do that, and it's so that's also been, that's been a pleasant surprise. And just to elaborate on what Elizabeth was talking about maternity leave, I was thinking about paid family leave last night, and how, I don't want to say it's not that hard, but I don't think it's as complicated as people think it is. Like, I think it's doable. It's feasible. We just have to be open to that change. And so having those tough conversations that are like, this is something, again, we have to kind of test our assumptions, but I'm pretty confident in saying that would be an appeal to either current or prospective employees having paid family leave. So let's try to do something about it and be strong in our convictions too. If we can't say, all know these are pressing challenges, but then we kind of have to put our money literally where our mouth is.
No, and that's exciting. You're already seeing some, concrete results or progress, or not concrete, maybe even obsidian results from your work that you've been doing. Ryan, what have you been able to apply in your organization?
I think, first and foremost, I agree with Megan in terms of, for me, when I came back from the convening, it was like invigorating, right? You're passionate about what you do, but being around so many like-minded people, you become more invigorated and is more passionate about what you do. And so, that then kind of transpires to you doing even better at your job than you currently are. And as well, within my field, within public works, it typically is a fairly thankless field to be in, right? People will tell you quickly and happily what you're doing wrong. When something is working well, you don't hear a thank you, you don't hear anything. It's just like, well, that's what you should be doing. And so, sometimes that kind of being in that thankless field becomes isolating, like Megan, saying. So knowing that there's other people across the country that are, feeling the same and things like that, it really is kind of something great to kind of lean on as you're doing your day-to-day job. But for me, kind of when I came back from the convening, things that I wanted to kind of focus on or really ramp up efforts are, we have in my work for the tribe, we have a tribal employment right office. And the purpose of that, the TARO is what it's called, it's an acronym TARO. Well, the purpose of that is to help tribal members ultimately with employment, but with really progressing themselves professionally out there. So I've been working with our TARO office since we came back, since November, of creating a development and succession plans for tribal employees, but more importantly with tribal members as well. And really, I think that kind of leans on the kind of the grower resilient workforce, where you're developing mentorships, or you can kind of start laying out career paths with people, and they can see that progression. They've got those goals and those milestones to aim for. So working with our own TARO office to have those plans in place for employees throughout the tribe. Also, with that same office, I manage a lot of construction projects out in the tribe, whether it's building new roads, bridges. We also do vertical construction, so buildings as well as subdivisions, housing subdivisions. And we have been working on putting in workforce goals into those contracts. So that would be stating that a contractor has to hire a certain amount of labor has to be from our skills bank within our TARO office, which would be for tribal members. So it is getting tribal members onto kind of prevailing wage jobs, which are good living wages. Those tribal members, some of them have been just impacted, some of them had addiction issues in their past, but it is helping them really allow them to shape their future and not get it defined by their past. So, I've been working closely with those within my own kind of bounds of what I can do, but it's something that I'm definitely bringing back, with the Promised Pathways initiative about, what we do as a tribe and what's something we can then, hopefully maybe even bring out to a broader community.
Very exciting. We're kind of running up against the end of our time today, but before we go, I gotta ask you all, what's next? What I hear there's another convening coming up. What are you doing to prepare for it, and what do you expect is going to happen there, Megan?
So our second convening is in Phoenix at the end of January, and the purpose really is to review what the three groups have done so far and where we are, get some more feedback from our delegates, and additionally the elected officials that we'll be inviting, and then after that compose a final report.
Oh, very cool. And there was a report from the first convening which I found very interesting, and we'll include a link to the show notes in this episode. Elizabeth, what are you looking forward to at the next convening?
I'm looking forward to seeing the progress that each of the initiatives has made. I'm also looking forward to gathering with this group of very cool individuals again, from a personal note. The time, I really can't emphasize enough that the time we had together in Omaha was fabulous. Mm-hmm. So I'm just genuinely looking forward to spending time with these individuals, speaking with them, hearing how their professional lives have changed since we were last together, and looking towards the future together.
Very cool. I do live in Chicago. I must say that Phoenix in January sounds great.
I think that's why Phoenix was chosen.
Yes.
Ryan, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, honestly, I think both Megan and Elizabeth covered it all right. It's not only trying to see the progression on each one of those initiatives, and I know that with everybody that's working on what they're working on, there's going to be some great progression to share with the group at large. But honestly, personally, just to get to see these people again, we all, I feel like, clicked so well. It was a great group. Some great conversations, both professionally and personally. So really trying to just getting back to seeing everybody is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think too, learning more about how members from other groups are implementing just the concepts that we've talked about. I know for me in Nashua, we just went or about to go digital with our budget. So instead of a PDF, there will be an interactive website with that's less cumbersome and a little bit more palatable, because being in the mayor's office, we get a lot of questions and, quite frankly, complaints about taxes and our taxpayer dollars. But just taking the time to explain, hey, maybe the difference between a general fund and our enterprise funds, or this is breaking down literally what your taxpayer dollars pay for, is helpful. And it's validating when we get, thank you for explaining. They might not agree, but we're at least able to translate some of that for them. So thinking about, again, like making a very comprehensive 300 plus page budget book a little bit more understandable kind of speaks to what group number 3 is doing.
Right. I think that great example of why communication is one of those big initiatives. Well, gang, they're big initiatives. I know you're looking to make a lot of progress on them by 2030, so I should probably let you go do it. But before we go, thank you for talking to me today. But if you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you pick as the exit music for this episode? Elizabeth, maybe we'll start with you.
I wish you didn't start with me. Man, I don't know if I even have a response.
That's fine. Ryan, what do you got?
Sorry.
I would go with Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Marvin Gaye.
That's a great choice, Ryan.
Oh, nice. Megan, do you can you do you have one?
Yes. So I'm going to go with Get on Your Feet by Gloria Estefan. I think it speaks to what we're trying to do, trying to get up and make it happen. And that was also Leslie Knope's campaign song. So it feels like a little on brand.
For the listener, Megan has a Pawnee, Indiana poster in the background behind her.
I completely forgot. That was a COVID purchase. It was weird times, but I do have, and I completely forgot it was behind me until now. So I do feel like a little bit of a dork, but I'm going to stand behind that.
Hey, well, we'll see what our engineers pick to put. We'll add it in post. That ends our episode for today. Thanks for coming on and talking with me, everyone. GovLove is produced by a rotating cast of ELGL volunteers. ELGL is the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. You can reach us at elgl.org/GovLove or on Twitter at GovLove Podcast. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government. Thanks, guys. Bye.